Why is the music video of Dimash's performance of Over Here awesome? Hi, I'm Dr. Mark, and I'm going to help you sing and perform more like the top artists around the world. I'm a professional voice teacher, performance coach, and opera stage director. I've helped thousands of singers around the world learn the techniques and methods that got the top singers to where they are. Let's talk about what makes this so awesome. Usually I love to watch live performances, but every once in a while I'll do a music video or something else. And this time I really thought this was a great music video, and there's not a great live performance out there, but it's an excellent song and wanted to share it with you today. So let's check it out and see what's going on. Okay, so music hasn't even started yet. Or has it? The challenge is always, where does the song start? And the answer is always, it always starts at least a measure before we hear any sound. This sound that we're hearing, this thunder and lightning, it's already part of what we're perceiving as the musical world. Remember, music is part of what we're hearing, the world that we hear. That's how our brain interprets it. So, what are we hearing and seeing so far? Storm, lightning, rain. It's a progression, right? It's ramping up and helping us feel this moody, sad, angsty, turbulent start before we even hear the music. One of the things I love about Dimash is how he sets up a song so that it has a progression and it really takes us on this roller coaster. It's never stagnant. It's always going somewhere. And I think that's a huge lesson that we can learn from Dimash, and even in this moment where we haven't even started with the music yet. Love it. Love that quote, by the way. Awesome. Okay, so I hope that at this point I've become a deer, which is Dimash's fan club, right? In that now that I'm watching these video clips, that I'm noticing the clips and the performances that these different clips are taken from. So really cool. The other thing I'm noticing is it sounds like this is a recording taken from a practice recording of this song from him. Not sure. But when I listened to another one of this, that's what I heard first before I listened to this one. And I haven't listened to this one all the way through, but it sounds like the same thing. So I always applaud fan-based material where they are capturing the essence of a performer and trying to take the lessons that a live performer has to make happen live and capture that in the video. So kudos to whoever made this video. I think you're doing an awesome job of taking visual elements and concepts that make Dimash awesome and working it into what's going on in your video. We're seeing that in the development of what's happening visually. We're seeing it tie in, just like we hear with Dimash all the times. He keeps tying everything together. We hear him have one sound and then it disappears and morphs into something else, but then it comes back in another time that then relates to that first time, right? So lots of this tying together, and we see that here with this clip of rain coming down, tying into the beginning, and it just creates this cohesive world where our brain makes sense of pattern and it makes sense out of deviation from the pattern, right? Which implies that we need some level of pattern for us to make sense of it and feel like it's a normal part of world and life, and we know what's going on. We know the basic story, and that also sets us up to be ready for the contrast and the difference. So love what they're doing with that here. Love this clip of Dimash playing the piano. I've had some students recently that have been really inspiring to me. They've been inspiring to me because I'll be talking to them and they'll say, yeah, I'm taking voice lessons, but I'm also wanting to learn piano, and I'm starting taking piano lessons and guitar lessons or ukulele lessons or these other things. And I think one of the keys of being an artist is always exploring and looking for new ways to express yourself. It's also being curious, being eager to learn. And I think that's something that I really admire also about Dimash, is everything that I've heard about and read is that he is always trying to learn something new and not just settle for the popular narrative of what's right and wrong, but really dig deep into something to understand it completely so that he can then use it to be as expressive as he possibly can. And we hear that coming out of singing and what he does with his visual performance as well. And year after year, he just keeps getting better. And that's the sign of an exceptional artist. So. Okay, are you following here? Are you tracking the different sounds he's making with his voice? Range is relatively limited in this song. There's not a ton going on melodically. It's staying pretty small, especially for Dimash. It's not making him do a quarter of what he can pull off. But you'll notice here that he's, even with it so limited, he's still keeping the airflow consistent, but he's giving us a lot of different colors that keep our interest and keep enough variety so we stay engaged. We had this breathy sound a bit ago. Now he's in this cleaner, much more natural speech-like place, not operatic, really just almost talking on pitch. And he keeps morphing in between these different sounds. So even when melodically it's relatively not dramatic, he still keeps so much drama and expressiveness in it in a way that keeps us engaged. Love it. Okay, so something I've heard a lot and that singers come into all the time during lessons are they're wanting to get this smooth thing that some people call mix and people call all different things, but really just this sound where you travel from really low notes to really high notes and have it just sound smooth and consistent like it's all one voice, right? And that really is the goal for many of us, is to just get this really smooth range all the way through. Now, there's some styles of music making and songs and singing where there's purposely wants this big change in register. But for the most part, we want to be able to have control over our voice and be able to either do it or not. In this case, what we can learn is you'll notice on the bottom, he's not singing super heavy, not singing super loud, not singing super big. He's keeping it relatively lean, light, narrow, open in back, tall, yes, but not beefy, right? He's not really leaning into it. And he's also keeping the airflow really consistent as he's going up. He's not pop, 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 pop. It's woo. It's going to feel really like it's sliding as you start figuring that out. So give it a try. If you're having a really hard time bridging up, lighten up on the bottom. Don't sing so hard, so heavy, so big on the bottom, and see if that helps you transition into those higher notes a lot easier. I just realized that can be really confusing. If you hear someone say sing lighter, what do you mean by lighter? Hopefully it was your question. Like, what does that mean? How am I supposed to do that? Here's why it's confusing. Because when we're listening to Dimash, when he sings lighter, do you mean when he's singing breathy? Is that what you mean by lighter? Or is what you mean by lighter softer dynamic level? Or is what you mean by lighter less chord adduction, meaning the chords aren't coming together quite so hard, they're coming together in a more balanced or even slightly aspirate position, which again, the aspirate position goes to the breathy sound. What do you mean by being light? What I mean by being light is I mean that you're keeping the resonance, that buzzy feeling, forward. And really buzzy here, it's not pulling back and getting stuck back here, but it's staying forward. I'm also talking about the feeling here in our throat of just staying open and released and not feeling any pressure or tension here. I'm also talking about chord adduction, meaning that we're not really pressed and pushing those vocal folds together, but that we have them coming together with the minimum amount of pressure we need to get a clean sound, and really letting the airflow, consistency, and velocity travel through those vocal folds and suck them together efficiently instead of relying on the muscles pressing themselves together super heavily. That's kind of what I mean. You might say, okay, well, what am I supposed to do with that? I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. How do I do that? Well, the key is, for right now, just making it a goal of keeping it as easy as possible here, not trying to sing super loud, not necessarily soft, not necessarily loud, but gentle sound possible here in our throat, and keeping that airflow consistent as we're traveling up and seeing what happens. That's what we mean by it. Also, you'll notice as he comes down, he doesn't make it super beefy as he gets down. One of the things that makes this big ka-chunk gear change for a lot of performers, especially when you're just trying to figure it out, is that they finally get into this lower range where they feel like they can be beefy and they let everything collapse and push. That's going to make it have this big gear change, clunky register shift change, right? Instead, if you keep this open feeling, this lifted, suspended feeling in the back of your mouth and in your abdomen, in your stomach muscles, keeping that kind of suspended open feeling, keeping the airflow moving really nice and consistently, and not pressuring and putting more push down below, it's going to help you glide down through that passaggio, through that register shift a lot easier and with a lot less abrupt change. The other big thing to watch for as you're traveling up or down is placement change. It's going to sound like a huge change if at a specific note, all of a sudden you go from keeping it forward and buzzy to having it pull back in the back of your throat. That's going to create a huge sense of change if you do that. And that's often one of the things that make us hear this big change from chest voice to head voice to falsetto, when really it's just a change in placement. And that's just about it. We're still using the same vocal folds, and really what's changing is placement and balance of chord closure and airflow. Something else I want to point out that I think is really crucial to keeping this breath moving, keeping the airflow consistent, keeping things from getting stuck heavy and tight, is how we're thinking about music. What I mentioned earlier that I loved about whoever made this video, and what I love about Dimash, is that the music is always going somewhere. It's never stopped or stagnant or stiff. It's always traveling. And that means changing in dynamic. It means melodic line. It means everything that's going on. It's always either building up to a climactic moment or releasing down to then create a new climactic moment, right? It's this give and take, this push and pull that we really love when we hear it in music. It makes it so dramatic, so emotional, so convincing, so engaging. What we need to take away from it is when we're singing, are there moments where your brain kind of holds and locks onto it? For example, the most common one is a high note, right? Our brain thinks build, 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 and then it starts getting tense and anticipating because it's planning on this is our goal moment is the high note, and so we're going to stop on it and we're going to get this high note. That means we basically go up to the top of the hill and just stop. But there's the rest of the song, right? And that also means that our energy level isn't to get us up and over the hill. It's just to get us barely eking to the top and stop. Not what we want. In fact, what we want is we want to imagine that we are going up and over this hill and down and using that momentum to keep going forward and up and over 100 more hills. And at the very end of the song, we don't want to imagine that we stop, but we want to imagine that the sound stops, but our energy keeps traveling past, at least for a measure of silence. I know that might sound really abstract, and I'm not a big fan of teaching abstractly, but how we think about singing, how we think about making these notes and pitches and melodies and rhythms has a tremendous effect on how we produce the sound, because our body does what our mind tells it. The challenge is our conscious mind can't always identify all these little ways that we're thinking about music that trip us up, that we just learn intuitively. We pick it up from when we're a kid in a choir, and we just pick it up and we think about this way. No one ever told us. It's just kind of how our brain imagines it and pictures it. And that's one reason we have voice teachers and coaches, is to help us identify the ways we're thinking about it and how to reframe those thoughts in a way that are helpful. Or try some of these ideas that were thrown out to you here and see if they're helpful to you and help you identify the moments where your brain is not thinking of moving through it, but is wanting to stop and lock onto a specific moment. You should always be thinking a few notes ahead and building or releasing from those moments with a goal being behind it. Another thing you can do on the high note, if you have a high note that you're wanting to stop on, make your goal a note or two after it. And you're going to find that that high note comes out a lot easier because your body isn't anticipating and trying to build up just for this high note, but it's expecting going beyond it. And so it'll work for you all the way through that high note and beyond. Dimash does this gorgeously. His voice is always going to and from places, building momentum, releasing tension. Love it. Another trap that we like to fall into a lot is thinking we have to sing high notes louder. We don't. High notes already sound louder on their own. Our ears hear them as louder even if they're the same decibel level. So really just trust if you'll keep that voice open and consistent and smooth, allow the vocal folds to change their shape. You don't have to make it happen. You don't have to push it. You don't have to force it. Just sing as easily as you can and trust that it's loud enough. You do not need to push the top note. You don't need to make the high note louder. What you do need to do is make sure that you're staying open, consistent, and generating the quality of sound that you're wanting to. Are you wanting it to be taller and more open, more richer and darker? Are you wanting it to be brighter and more forward? Shape it how you want to. But don't stress out about the decibel level and try to make that happen with your voice. Especially if you have a microphone, I would suggest in general, don't worry about decibel level. Think of decibel levels as emotional energy. Instead of thinking you have to sing louder, think you have to feel more intensely, but still just keep this open and not let the feelings creep into your throat. And it'll probably get you the result that we're looking for.
Say
One thing you can do if you're really struggling with runs that are taking you from the bottom up through a register shift into a higher range, and you're just really wanting to anticipate it and grab and pull and sing heavy, take your hand like this and just go side to side and keeping it moving really consistently all the way through it. This will help training your brain from thinking a high note is higher and a low note's lower. You think, but a high note is higher and a low note is lower. If you think about a high note as like you're going up a hill, your body's going to gear up for it, and it doesn't need to. And if you think of a low note as being at the bottom of a hill, your body is just going to like give up and like, oh, I don't have to do anything. No, I'm going down, which is not true. It's more like riding a bicycle on a flat street where high notes are a little further to the right and low notes are a little further to the left, but you got to keep moving forward at a consistent pace, going back and forth. That's more what we're going for. And by getting your hand going this way, it can help retrain your brain, because your brain's already been trained by looking at a sheet of music where we picture these notes actually being higher and lower. It's more like a piano keyboard where the notes are side to side, not actually higher and lower, right? So. The other thing I'd recommend if you're doing scales that are ascending like this, that there's a lot of notes happening really fast with a lot of words, is to break it down, slow it down. First of all, sing it actually slower at the start, but also just sing it on a vowel. Once you can do that really smoothly and consistently and accurately, then speed it up, keeping it on that vowel all the way up until you can do it at speed on that vowel. It should feel like you're just sliding all the way up there and then doing it so you're articulating each note, meaning it's going to feel like you're on one note but sliding up to each next one and just lingering a little longer, keeping that sense of connection here so it's not puff, 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 but consistent airflow all the way up on a vowel. Then what you want to do next is you want to sing it on the actual vowels without the consonants. This is a little tricky, but with practice, it's actually really helpful to help you be able to sing through that whole entire run smoothly and consistently on the vowel while keeping the vowel placement consistent. Cool. Really, 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 really useful. Then you add consonants. And again, slow it down and then slowly speed it up until you can do it all, keeping it super smooth and consistent all the way up. Breaking it down this way is really important because each of those steps introduces a whole new potential set of challenges to overcome, where if you haven't done the groundwork first, it can just be too much for you to be able to work through and get consistent. And going through in that order helps you solve the problems in an order that's useful and efficient. So give it a try. Always so much to talk about with Dimash. It's always so exciting to watch him perform, even when it's what looks like a fan-made film to his music, but you can hear so much going on and just so many awesome things to talk about. I'd love to hear what you liked, what you saw down below, what you learned from Dimash, what you think's awesome, and what else that you want me to react to. Check out my other videos on Dimash. You can see the playlist. If there's ones that should be that aren't, let me know. I've had some great viewers recommend videos that I've done, and I'm so grateful to them for those recommendations because they've really pulled out some wonderful material for me to look at. If you're looking to figure out how to use your voice, whether we're talking about your singing voice or your body language, whether it's in singing or even just in your regular everyday business, and trying to figure out how do I make a sound that's expressive and easy all at the same time, book a time with me at foundyourvoice.com. I can help you sing more consistently, perform at a higher level, all in a way that is genuine and authentic to yourself. You can also find me on wizio.com if you want me to react to a short video or audio clip. Thanks. See you next time.